everyone, welcome back. The video I have for you today is one that I talked briefly about in a previous video, though I can't remember exactly which one it was. But today is the 100 Heads Challenge. This challenge was created or at least marketed by Ahmed I hope I'm saying that right. He has a video that I will link to talking about the challenge, and it's pretty simple. The idea is to draw 100 heads in 10 days. And Ahmed went so far as to provide a whole Pinterest board of human heads, and they're both photographs, sculptures, various depictions of humans. I didn't actually do every single one on the Pinterest board, but I did do most of them. There were only a couple that I skipped, and it was because I didn't feel, as someone who is a beginner kind of to drawing human faces, I didn't think it was a good example for me to kind of learn from. So this was pretty much just really stylized sculptures, and specifically ones where the lighting was really strange, because as someone who's still learning to draw human faces and human heads, I wanted to make sure I was learning from something that I can get some useful lessons out of as a beginner, and I felt like some of the really drastic lighting on some of the sculptures made it a little bit difficult to find the shapes in the picture, if that makes sense. And then at the end, I also skipped some of the end ones because I wanted to go back to day one and redraw a lot of the heads I did on day one, so I could really easily compare the changes I've seen in my art over just 10 days. Before this challenge, I've dabbled in drawing human faces, but I've never really put in a concerted effort. I think there was a couple of days in my 100-day project that I gave up on last year, where I was drawing specifically human faces, but a lot of the drawings I did were more components, so I would draw a few eyes, a few noses, a few mouths, and one of the big challenges to drawing human faces is getting all of these pieces in the right place and the right proportion to the rest of the face. And so this was one thing that I really had to learn. I tried a few different ways of plotting out the face as I was working my way through this challenge. I tried, starting with what I was more comfortable with, which I feel like is the eyes, and then kind of stemming out from there. I tried planning the head as kind of like an oval shape and trying to get the sizes down from the beginning. I tried a lot of different things, and I think I kind of improved on this throughout the project, but I definitely have some more things to learn. So I was toying with the idea of doing this again, and the best next time to do it would be the next month, where my happiness project is focused on art, which I believe is in March, so next month. You might have noticed, just watching me draw these heads, is that I don't really focus on the hair very much. I wanted to focus on the face and the features of the face, and luckily the photos picked for the Pinterest board that I was following mostly had hair out of the face, or very short hair, or hair that was like pulled completely back and didn't really show in the picture at all. And this had the bonus of allowing me to focus on the face. If there was no hair in the picture, I didn't have to draw it, obviously. But it also gave me the distinct feeling that some of my drawings were missing something. I think that look you get when all the hair is pulled completely back from the face, for me, it's kind of hard to portray that in the drawing. And so these images, they just ended up looking bald. And if they weren't supposed to be bald, my brain in the back of it was like, wait a minute, something's missing in this drawing and you need to fix it. And so it made it kind of difficult to focus on the facial features that I was really trying to get better at. And similarly, I didn't bother drawing most of the accessories. If a person in the picture was wearing earrings or a necklace or Sometimes I would sketch out the rough shape of cloth, like big collars or a cloth wrapped around the head, but I really didn't want to complicate this process too much. I wanted to focus on the face and really get that down, and then maybe I'll do something else where I focus on drawing fabric or um, various accessories, or maybe I will just do a more complete head drawing challenge where my goal is to draw all the clothing. But for now, I think it is very important for new artists who have kind of like a fragile self esteem. That's definitely me. If you're really unsure of your skills, you should simplify the things that you practice as much as possible and really focus down on what you want to learn with that exercise. And for this, that was faces. And as I hope you'll agree with me from the finished comparisons of day 1 and day 10, I think I did a pretty good job. I think I got a lot of growth out of this challenge, and that's why I'm excited to attempt it again. One thing I want to talk about is things that I didn't expect that I discovered during this challenge, or maybe things that I thought would go really well that ended up not going very well. The first thing that I've actually seen other people talk about in their videos for the same challenge was I totally expected the kind of wrinkly old man faces to be much more difficult than the nice smooth like young person faces, and that was the opposite. I found as I was drawing that the extra lines, the extra like inherent shape to the face made it so much easier to get everything in the right place. So if you're intimidated by drawing all of those wrinkles and all of those extra details, don't worry about it. Just try to focus on the big shapes. So there's a crease from the nose that kind of goes around the mouth. There's creases near the cheeks where the eyes kind of meet the cheeks, the under eyes, and I don't know. It made my drawings look much better to have that detail in there, but it was detail that I couldn't really see on faces that didn't have the details weren't exaggerated because they didn't have any wrinkles or drastic shapes. Apologies if you hear some background noise. There are some birds just going crazy outside, and my neighbor's dog is left in the yard in the cold, and he's pretty upset about it, so he's been barking. Um, I'll do what I can to minimize the sound, but I can only do so much. Another thing I want to talk about is eye placement, or more specifically, the placement of the iris and the pupil in the eye. I found two separate challenges with drawing eyes. The first one was getting the kind of eyelids in the right place on the face, so getting the eyes placed correctly on the face. And then the slightly more difficult part for me was pointing the eyes so that they looked like they were looking in the right direction in a natural way. And there's a benefit and a curse of psychology where we are just naturally very good at identifying human faces, and because it is so important that we are able to read other people's emotions and, understand who we are looking at, even the tiniest difference in a human face is enough to kind of trigger that little voice in your brain that says something here is not quite right. And so getting the eyes pointed the right direction was probably the most challenging part of this entire project for me. I do not know why. My best guess is that my kind of logic side of my brain was thinking, oh, it's just two circles that I have to draw in here, not a big deal. And then because the eye has so little space in it, um, it's narrow, it's small in the face. Uh, if it's even a little bit off, the ratio of the white of the eye to the darker part, the iris and the pupil, it seems like a lot. You know, our brains are looking for those discrepancies. So this is something that I think I will practice on its own. Like I think I will draw just eyes and see if I can narrow down the specifics that way. And there are a lot of different things you can do this with. If you're having trouble with a specific piece of the face, you can just draw those over and over again until you get a better idea of the underlying geometry, you know, the shape of, say, a nose. Noses are all similar, but the shapes of the different pieces of it vary, so practicing a whole bunch of them will expose you to a lot of different shapes, kind of the same way that this project exposes you to a lot of different shapes of face. Another piece that I think I do need to work on a bit is portraying emotion. I know that this is a pretty advanced topic for drawing faces, and so I'm not beating myself up too hard by missing the mark a little bit sometimes with the emotion that the face is meant to be portraying. But that's another thing where you can either use your own face, pictures of your own face, or find sheets of people or characters making different emotions with their face and just practice those, commit them to memory, and eventually, over time, you learn the different ways that the face moves when smiling, when feeling frustrated, when feeling sad. And so, practice, 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 as always, is the answer to getting better at this kind of stuff. But I think that in order to focus your practice, in order to figure out what it is that you even need to practice, starting with something that is a little bit more general would be a good thing. Just, you know, hold your expectations somewhat loosely. Don't worry about if you do this challenge and most of your faces look pretty bad. I think a lot of the ones I drew could have been better. I'm trying to remain positive about it, you know, which is my advice, is to remain positive, you know, see this as a learning experience and use this valuable practice time to identify what you need to practice more. What is going to make the biggest change in your art? Is it working on proportion like I tried to focus on here? Is it the hair? Can you do the face really well, but the hair is where you kind of lose the melody? Is it eyes, like with me? I found mouths and noses to be a little bit easier, which noses used to be my problem area. And so I practiced them quite a bit and I got a little bit better. So this is just an example of how in only 10 days, I did skip a day entirely. So I did this over the course of 11 days, but I only did drawing on 10 of those days. So I think it counts. I think the day I skipped was around day 7, so I wasn't going to start over at that point. And this is part of the thinking behind my 5,000 minutes focus every month, which I have since lowered to 3,000 minutes to account for, you know, responsible human schedules that don't involve practicing all day long. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can check out my happiness project video or just not worry about it. It's not critical to watching this video. But the idea is that I could have placed these focused minutes of practice anywhere. It didn't have to be in this challenge. It could have been, you know, 30 minutes in the morning for 20 days, or, you know, just 15 minutes every day for 40 days, or whatever the math works out to. These drawings, the set of 10 that I did every day, took me about an hour. And the weird thing is, as I got a little bit better, it took me the same amount of time to do the drawings. I didn't get faster, I just got a little bit better at placing the features of the face. I got a little bit better at drawing them in, but the time it took me was about the same. So another thing I could focus on practicing in the future is maybe speeding that up. And another thing that you'll see as I flip through all of my finished drawings here is that they also got bigger as I worked my way through the 10 days. I think what happened was I started off a little bit shy. I was worried that they would be bad, and so I made them very small so you couldn't see. And then as I got a little better, I got more confident, and the drawings were allowed to get bigger. I could work on putting more detail in there if the drawings themselves were a bit bigger. So I'm curious to hear if anyone else has done this particular challenge. How did it go for you? If you've got a video up, I'd love to watch it. So in this case, feel free to leave links to other videos. Ordinarily, I don't go for that because I think promoting yourself in someone else's space is a little bit sneaky. But you have my permission. If you've done a 100 heads challenge, feel free to leave a link below and I'll check it out. Another iteration of this project would maybe be adding color to the faces. Like I mentioned, I wanted to keep things very simple, so I just did, grayscale pencil drawings. But in a future iteration of this challenge, I might want to venture into color a little bit. Some artists who give advice like this will recommend starting in grayscale before you start to use color because learning value separately is, in their opinion, much easier. It gives you a better foundation. And then other people will recommend diving directly into color because the only way to get better at something is to practice with it. So if you avoid color, you miss out on that valuable practice. I'm not sure which camp I kind of fall into. I do think that baby steps are what work for me, but once I start to use more color, who knows, I might find out that I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I've been avoiding it in my other practice. So it probably depends on how you learn and what you want to get out of your art. And once I'm done flipping through all 10 days, I'm going to go back and show a specific comparison between day 1 and day 10 and to kind of see how I did. One risk I run is that it was easier for me to draw the faces a second time because I drew them once before, but we're just going to ignore that possibility and just say that this is a direct example of how my skill has improved. And with that, we are at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. This was a lot of fun. Let me know if there are other challenges you'd like to see me do, and of course, don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thanks again, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!